Vulnerability is just tough, and connecting with others in the community is just tough. And I will share personally that it has been a journey for me to really be open and authentic with other people. And in Alan Downs' book, The Velvet Rage, he talks about this flaw that gay men feel that they have, this imperfection that they feel the need to cover up. And it's related to shame. And shame and perfectionism, which I call the two, they're kind of like siblings. They're two sides of the same coin. They really come into play in terms of blocking and keeping people from moving forward in really developing those meaningful relationships and connections with other people. Um, Shame, in terms of where that begins, a lot of times it starts when we're kids. And especially in a world where, face it, we're dealing with a lot of ignorance, societal expectations, religious beliefs, all the things that come against us for being gay. If you have that going on and you have your family that believes that you need to be straight, you need to be a certain masculine type if you're a little boy, it's really going to be hard. You're going to have to you're going to feel something is wrong internally. And then what happens is as you continue to grow up, you start to feel rejected. You link up approval with not being those things. So you all of a sudden become this person who is this little kid who is trying to cover over something that they feel really, really bad about. And they link it up with punishment or withholding of love and affection from parents, rejection from peers, and all these other kind of things. So all of this plays into the first, what I would call first layer of shame that gets built in a lot of gay men. As you go on, there may be other experiences like trauma. In my case, I had gone sexual abuse in grade school, which really, really marred me in terms of like my self-esteem. And then when I was in junior high, I endured for about a year just terrible taunting and jeering, which I know a lot of guys are familiar with. The bullying, the taunting, the teasing, you fag, all those kinds of things. And it was just horrifying to actually have to crying every day, never getting a break from it. And those kinds of things start to come into you where you're like linking up this internal feeling of shame with a sense of needing approval. So the only way to get past that is to cover that up. So what happens as you go on is all these incidences, these traumas, these family situations, school, other kids, the world, the news, all those things start to play in. And it becomes like this shame that goes on autopilot inside the back of your mind. And so how do you start to deal with that? How do you fix it? Because actually, as we start to grow up and we start to become adults, we learn to adapt and we try to figure out ways to get around it. And how do we fix the problem? And so this actually comes up frequently when you're in at work, in a work relationship. Maybe perhaps you have you're performing in a certain way that's not acceptable to your employer, or you're in a dating relationship. You're trying to date somebody. You're online. You're got a profile out there and you're corresponding with somebody, and you might go on a date and it might show up there. It might show up in friendships. It might show up in the community when you're just small talking around. There's going to be something that's going to present itself where you need to really figure out fast, how do I conceal myself? How do I not let people know what this thing is inside me? Because I know what happens is that if it shows up, if people know that there's this deep, dark secret inside me, they're going to reject me. So I had to be somebody else. I had to present myself as somebody else. So Alan Downs talks further in his book about all the different ways that we as gay men can compensate for this flaw that's inside. It could be making a lot of money. It could be being a fabulous designer. It could be having the most beautiful home. It have the best clothes, the most on point look, the best set of friends. You've gone to this most a luxurious restaurant and you can post all the pictures about it on Instagram. There's going to be something that's going to have to overshadow the shame, which is something bigger and something you just puff up. And I call them those facades as well. They kind of fill in all those cracks to make sure that everyone sees a more ideal image of yourself. And this can run like I said, it runs on autopilot because you have to you're mentally figuring out a way to become accepted. And unfortunately, what happens when you're connecting with people on that facade level, when you're being somebody that you're not, and you've got all these accolades and all these achievements in life, and this great car, and this great clothes, and this great job and career, and you've traveled all over the world, you're going to attract, and if that's the most important thing to you, you're going to attract people like that, because people who want that, who want to be around that, and who think that's important. And what ends up happening is you have this circle of friends that are maybe not, they're on this same page, but it's a same page of this bravado, this fakeness that's not really built on anything. It's not a very strong foundation. It's something that's all based on external things to actually cover over things that we don't like about ourselves, things that we have been taught will cause people to reject us and will make us feel unworthy of love. And so the person who really likes you in that scenario, they only like you for who you present yourselves to be. So unfortunately, when you've got two things that are going on, you've got this self that's on the inside of you that you know is the genuine self, that's like the one that you're trying to protect, and this is where that protection comes from. And then you have this exterior. But when the two are kind of like at odds with each other, where you just have a sense where you know that this is not really you, and you're presenting this other self out there. I'll give an example. When I had gone to one of my high school reunions, and this is before I was out, I was really putting up this front. I had this really great outfit on. I was just all, great hair. I made sure that people knew that I was successful in what I was doing. And I remember a little bit later on in the evening, I was dancing with one of my classmates, and she kept saying, "Are you gay?" And I said, "No, I'm not gay." "Are you gay?" And it kept going on. And every time I said no, I felt this twinge inside me that was like, I'm lying. I can't believe this. And that's an example of when there's something on the inside that you feel ashamed about and you're trying to cover up, is trying to claw its way out, because you've got this whole thing, this whole barrier that's like erected up there, and it's starting to like shake. And that is when something is going to like shift, something's going to give. In a relationship, if you've attracted somebody who is your ideal type, and they're you're their ideal type, but it's based on these outer trappings, when there is an event that happens, and I call it triggering, something starts to really shake that foundation, and it becomes very difficult to kind of manage it. And it may be something that just flips a switch in you, where you just flip out. You become angry. You go off on the person. You jump to conclusions about something about them. And all of a sudden, the perfection that you've had on the outside and how they've been relating to you just falls apart. And you don't know what to do. And all of a sudden, they're looking at you in a certain way, and they're like, "Who is this person? I don't know who this person is." And you're angry because all the stuff you've been covering over has now started to kind of make its way to the surface. And what happens a lot of times is you may go into this tailspin of shame. So you've covered it over in perfectionism, the internal shame that's been there, but then this event happens, whatever it could be. It could be something, say you're dating somebody and you think that they're fooling around on you. And they're really not, but somehow you jump to conclusions, and all of a sudden there's this big thing that's out there that you're insecure. And that comes up, and then you're like, shit, I have like made this come out, and I am embarrassed about it. And you can be filled with shame. And so you have a few choices that are going to happen. And this is where people diverge, and this is where it's so important for connection and to be vulnerable. Either the people will decide, oh, hell no, I don't want any part of this. You are not who I thought you were. And they just like take off. They're gone. They've disappeared. Or they might not care about it, or they might, they might be okay about it and, just know that that's, just what you do, but you don't feel good about it and you run. You're off. And so either they run or you run, or the third option, which is like you stay in it and you decide to really work it through, and you come to a place where you do that little breakthrough and you're able to connect on that level. And I feel like this has been some of the biggest breakthroughs that I have experienced, where I've actually stayed in a situation that was extremely uncomfortable to me and I didn't like it. And I decided to be reflective about it, and I decided to press into it. And it didn't always turn out my way, but sometimes it did turn out my way. And I was actually able to go into that relationship a little bit further. So I hope this helps, and I hope it makes sense. If you have further questions for me, please put them down in the comments or the chat. I would love to hear them. I'd love to hear your angles on this, and I'll see you next time.